Welcome back to the Soul Mirror, the space where we pause, soften, and gently reflect the deepest layers of who we really are, beyond the noise, beyond the labels, beyond the roles we play. I'm your host, Shreya, and today's episode feels especially potent, almost like an invitation rather than a conversation. Because today we are exploring a word that's often misunderstood, romanticized, or placed way out of reach: enlightenment. And joining us is someone who doesn't just talk about awakening, he lives the inquiry. Our guest, Dean Graves, is a spiritual teacher, author, and podcaster with over 25 years of experience in meditation and mindfulness. He has guided countless people toward self healing through workshops, four books, and globally resonant podcasts. And for the past 15 years, Dean has been devoted student of a sixth density creator being, a journey that has shaped the groundbreaking manuscript he's currently bringing into the world on the human experience. This is not about escaping life, it's about meeting it fully, honestly, and awake. So let's begin. Welcome, Dean. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Well, thank you, Shreya. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
And then when people hear the word enlightenment, they often imagine monks or mountaintops or something mystical and far removed from everyday life. From your lived experience, what is enlightenment really?
Enlightenment is the path of human evolution. They're synonymous. It's the same thing. Everyone is enlightenment to the degree that they have allowed themselves to become enlightened. Enlightenment implies, by virtue of its name, something to do with light, and understanding that light is information and light informs energy, and we are all energy. Everything that we experience is energy. Light informs energy how to be. And so, our evolutionary process, our enlightenment process, is the process of gaining additional instructions on how to be, um, as light workers, as light beings in the our participation in creation.
That's truly wonderful. And do you believe enlightenment is a destination or more of an ongoing relationship with awareness?
Well, the because of the limitations of consciousness that as humans we experience, we are on a very elementary. We participate in a very elementary range of consciousness. We have a specific cri- um, curriculum that we are to learn in order to evolve through this range of consciousness in preparation for the next range of consciousness. We perceive enlightenment primarily because of the successes of the Buddha and Lao Tzu and many of the other spiritual leaders that we perceive to have been enlightened, that it is a destination, but it's actually the journey itself. And they are simply farther along on the journey and were able to share a perspective far in advance of our um, prevailing range of development. And so, as what I say, everyone is enlightened to the degree that they have allowed themselves to become enlightened. Uh, and wherever they are is absolutely fine, but we are motivated to experience more of what we like. What we like varies from person to person, and it will change dramatically as we progress down the enlightenment path. And so, whatever you're doing in life, if it is bringing you joy, then you should continue to do that until it no longer um, provide you with joy. If it's not providing you with more joy, more happiness, then that means that you're not um, adequately on the enlightenment path.
Mm. Yes, I think that really lands because it shifts enlightenment from being something we achieve to something we practice noticing. And it suddenly feels less intimidating and more human. And
Well, it is very human. We are consciousness, and all of consciousness is on the enlightenment path.
yes. And also, you have spent years studying the human experience through both deep meditation and your work with a sixth density creator being. What do you think most people misunderstand about being human on the path to awakening?
Most people misunderstand that we have a purpose, and we also have a mission, and the for this lifetime. The two are parallel, but not the same thing. Our purpose as consciousness participating in creation is to explore ourselves. As we explore ourselves, we are fulfilling the purpose of creation and our participation in creation. Our mission is essentially for this lifetime is to discover what it is that feels good and that we like, and to do that because as we do that, then we will attract the type of experiences and the nature of the experiences that we need in order to fulfill our purpose, which again is to explore ourselves. And so life is intended to be enjoyed, and um, it is not expected in any at any point in time to be suffering. However, we do, because of our elementary level of development, oftentimes choose a suffering path in the mistaken perception that that is necessary in order for us to become more enlightened. But at no point in time are we ever designed to experience suffering other than through our own ignorance or innocence.
Is our pain actually an obstacle to enlightenment, or could it be one of the gateways?
Well, uh, our uh, uh, each range of consciousness beyond the most elementary ranges of consciousness, which are foundational and provide us with the environment necessary in order for consciousness at our range to participate in creation, has a specific curriculum. The curriculum that we are tasked with actually fulfilling, and by fulfilling I mean becoming, is awareness. And enlightenment requires that we assume being successful and advancing ourselves along the enlightenment path assumes that we undergo a process called awakening. And awakening in the United States has been um, a very topic in political circles lately. Awakening is nothing more than that point in time in your life where you uh, direct the awareness that we all have from outside of yourself inwardly. In other words, you invert that awareness and you begin to become aware of how you are experiencing your experiences and how you have to that point in time interpreted your experiences, thereby creating this perception of self that we all have. And so that is an awakening because it is the assuming of responsibility by recognizing the problem is internal and not external in the your capacity to experience joy and happiness, and begin the healing process. And the healing process is the surrendering of this false perception of self, which is predicated upon the perception that we are separate and autonomous beings. the whole process of enlightenment at our range of consciousness and through all of the much higher ranges of consciousness is the process of surrendering that perception of autonomy, surrendering our perception of separation, and evolving to greater unity, which eventually concludes with our total unification with the one infinite creator that began the process.
Yes, I think I love that perspective because it gently challenges the idea that we need to fix ourselves before we are worthy of awakening. And I think it suggests that nothing about us is wasted.
Well, the only part of that awakening is the realization that the only thing that you can change is yourself. I can't change you. I can't change anybody else in the world. I can offer information that I've learned, but any change is necessitated by the individual receiving the information. And so, consequently, by providing the information, you are being provided with the opportunity to assume responsibility for your own participation in creation, the further exploration of yourself and your contributions that you were designed um, to have to be able to make contributions to the process of creation itself.
Yes. And one of the biggest fears people have around enlightenment is the idea of losing themselves, their personality, their ambitions, or individuality. What really happens to the ego as consciousness expands?
Well, it's a process of surrender. And it is surrender because you cannot bully it. You cannot um, be commanded to surrender your perception of autonomy and your perception of self. We are designed to create this identity, this hierophant that we all function under and creates the uniqueness of our personality. But um, it is a false perception of self. But since it is our perception of self and it is who I think I am, you have a perception of self that you perceive to be who you think that you are. If you're not who you think you are, then the question must arise, who are you? And that's very scary to not know who you are, to have no perception of your self. And that's the biggest obstacle to advancing along the enlightenment path is that fear of not being who you think you are. So overcoming that fear is the process of healing because underneath that false perception of self is the authentic you that is always there. In every good feeling that you've had, including particularly the feeling of love, is not anything that you're getting from someone, but it is someone that or is an aspect of you that is inherent, that you allow yourself to feel in all the times that you have allowed yourself to feel love in the course of your lifetime is actually nothing more than that authentic self emerging through the fog of your perception of self. So the more that you are able to surrender that false perception of self, you allow that authentic you to emerge and the greater happiness you experience because that authentic self is happiness itself. So that's why happiness is the measure of how you're doing on your enlightenment path and how your evolution of consciousness is actually going.
And also, how can someone begin loosening their grip on identity without feeling like they're disappearing?
Well, the process is learning to invert that awareness that we all have. The most um, effective tool that we have is meditation, because all that meditation does is that it enhances your capacity to invert that awareness inwardly and become aware of what it is that you're observing, what it is that you're feeling, what it is that you're experiencing. So, meditation is the tool to affect the healing that we all desire, that we all, whether we are aware of our desire for it or not. But and that is a necessary process that we have to go through. My students, my meditation students, invariably have difficulty meditating when they first sit down to begin to meditate. And I explain to them that no one comes to meditation or the pursuit of an enlightenment path unless they're, as they say, running away from the stick. In other words, life has provided them with some degree of pain and or suffering, and so they're seeking relief from that stick by approaching uh, meditation. If they're persistent enough and develop the meditation muscle, then they will have what I call a bite of the apple. In other words, they receive or they experience some degree of significant success in inverting that awareness and becoming aware of what it is within them that is causing them that perpetual stress and suffering. And once they have that, then their motivation transforms from running away from the stick to chasing the bite of the apple because the apple tastes really good. And once they do that, then they're off and running uh, down the enlightenment path, and their whole perspective of self and their whole perspective of life transforms to one from a sufferer or a victim to one that is in control of their life and actively pursuing their participation in creation.
That's such a relief to hear because it reframes ego not as an enemy but something that simply needs to be seen clearly and not erased. And also, how does enlightenment show up in ordinary moments in relationships, conflict, work, even boredom?
Well, we look, we perceive as we evolve with even within this range of consciousness. As participants in this range of consciousness, we observe on a daily basis those characteristics that we deem to be desirable in other people: integrity, morality, ethics, which all come down to a considerate treatment of others that are around us. And that is the best illustration that we have of people that have been successful in their journey along the enlightenment path. But those are not things that can be taught. We can be provided with some instruction on it, but it's not going to become part of us and part of our beingness until we surrender the authenticity of that false perception of self and begin to do the healing work. Because part of the healing is allowing our creatorness to evolve, and that those characteristics that we deem so valuable and so worthwhile within our range of consciousness become who we are. And so it's not a matter of practicing it, it is just who you are. It doesn't occur to you to not be considerate of other people. And that is a result of the breakdown in the perception of autonomy and recognizing that other people and other parts of our experience, including other ranges, lesser ranges of consciousness, are not separate from us. They are simply extensions of us. And so, consequently, our consideration of self becomes a consideration of everything around us of an equal stature. And so we don't think about doing harm in any form or fashion to other aspects of our creation.
That's so beautifully grounding. And awakening can be deeply liberating but also unsettling. What does enlightenment ask us to let go of that we are often most afraid to release?
What we are invariably what we are most well we have experiences in order to learn. What we can learn about is ourselves in relation to people, places, and things. Based upon our history of experiences, we have created expectations that we don't that rule our our potential experiences, and we don't necessarily think about it, and we don't necessarily, or we're not necessarily aware of the behaviors that we've created as a result of these expectations. So we limit the choices of our expectation based upon our lack of awareness. The progression down the enlightenment path is the escalation of that awareness that allows us to become aware of and surrender those expectations and enjoy every new experience for the qualities and the lessons that those experiences provide us with. That is often called mindfulness. Mindfulness is nothing more than being able to take the objective viewpoint that you achieve in meditation back with you when you come back into the village, as I call it, out, in other words, out of meditation. You maintain that inwardly directed awareness so that you can view the problems of the world or of the village from that objective perspective of a much more enlightened and aware being. That allows you to not be reactive to the history of expectations that you may have developed, and actually allows you to surrender those expectations so that you, it's often called having an open mind. It says, or and the Buddha called it, I think, the no mind, which is you're a receptive entity to what the world brings you. But because you have surrendered those expectations and those designs that you've created for yourself in the past, you are able to enjoy and attract the experiences that are more pleasing to you. And so that's why your peace and your happiness becomes relatively undisturbed by as you go through your normal day.
That feels like such an honest truth that awakening is not about comfort but about freedom, and freedom asks for courage. And this is a wonderful conversation with you. And if after this my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
Well, I have a website that has all of my books and my podcasts listed on it, as well as how to contact me for more specific healing help and direction. It's the initial Dean, Graves, GRAVES.org. The Dean Graves is all one word, no spaces or periods or anything. And I welcome contact, questions, or anything that I can do to assist people along their own evolutionary journey.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and know more from you because you're truly an amazing person. And to all my listeners, as you are listening, I invite you to a simple reflection tonight. For the next 24 hours, notice where you are rushing to become something and instead gently ask, what is already here that I have not fully allowed? No fixing, no striving, just honest presence. And if this episode starts something in you, share it with someone who is quietly questioning their own path. Sometimes awakening begins through conversation. And Dean, thank you for holding such expansive, grounded wisdom and for reminding us that enlightenment is not about leaving our humanity behind, but finally embracing it with clarity and compassion. And to all my listeners, remember the soul mirror is not here to give you answers, it's here to help you see yourself more clearly. Until next time, stay curious, stay present, and keep listening inward. And do not forget to hit the follow button, subscribe, and also feel free to share your thoughts because your ears deserve premium content. Thank you.